Oh, YouTube! I realized I could actually wrap up what I said earlier. The first 3 hours. Thanks for bearing with me and everything else. There was a setup I forgot to get into. Might as well be separate to the other video. Um, the first media thing I criticized was Billy Bush appearing on Colbert. The second thing was Grizzly Man, Werner Herzog. But the thing that kicked me off on doing both these things tonight was the uh, Senate race, the election being held tonight in Alabama. And I'm not terribly put out by one result or the other in terms of what it does, or Democratic, Party flag waving from CNN's prow as if the boat wasn't sinking. I got to watch about the last hour of results coming in, and to be quite honest, wouldn't surprise me to find out in the news if I was to check, say, Google News right now. It might be reported as Doug still winning, but yeah, narrow victory 3 hours ago. Yeah, of course, Trump is the one who's being focused on as the big loser here. It's not even Roy Moore, but you know what? I'll tell you who the loser here is. I'll tell you who the real losers are. It's all the people that have been yelling pedo, pedo, pedo whenever they don't like somebody, but they don't have any evidence of it. That's not helping anything. All these accusations without proof, with no evidence, they don't help anything. And to make my point really clear, I heard someone tonight on the CNN pirate stream, because it was a pirate stream, in the chat room on the pirate stream, say that there was a special hell reserved for pedos like such and such a person, like Roy Moore or whoever else. And I thought to myself, gotcha. I really did. And I'll tell you why. And I asked the question in the chat directly to the person who made that statement. Excuse me, but what Bible promises that special hell for pedos? Please tell me. No answer, of course. No sensible answer, because you can't admit, the religious, they can't really admit to the truth of that one, which is there is surprisingly a large amount of silence on that particular issue, or even worse, support for the position, not prescriptions against, to be found in religious texts worldwide. Strangely, there are rules against thievery and murder in the Bible, for example, but yet for pedophilia, there is no clear rules being provided in this important religious text. I find this highly suspicious, and I told the chat so, and the guy that said it, that if you go into a prison, for example, where you're surrounded by murderers and thieves, and it just so happens that you are a pedophile, chances are you won't be in Gen Pop for very long, because the murderers and the thieves have a better idea of what to do with that type of person than what religious culture would tell them. They have to be educated into covering it up, you see. That's the funny part of it. So the amount of projection which has been occurring in the United States, I can't say that it's heartening. It isn't. But what is heartening is that we're likely coming to we might even passed the point of no return when it comes to throwing accusations and expecting them to stick about certain things. I really mean to say that, well, I'll put it like I did in the chat, actually. earlier I didn't keep a record of any of this. Someone might have actually logged me for saying the truth, but pedos don't fear the hell to come. I don't think that they do. I think the thing that they're really afraid of, if what I hear expressed around me by people is any indication, is retribution and reprisal from other human beings in the here and in the now. They know that their ass would be grass if they were ever caught. And it was known they'd be killed outright, or so they say. That's the threat which is applied against them. It's an absolute prescription. No exceptions in the mindset of the certain cultures I seem to have been encountering. It might not be shared, of course, by all cultures in that way. But if you were to mess with the wrong offspring, I'm pretty sure the bloody retribution would follow if the parental units were ever capable of following through with it. So I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm merely saying that human beings without any type of religious instruction or culture are capable of coming to that understanding. And religious culture seems strangely silent on encouraging this understanding. In fact, it's religious organizations and cultures which cover it up. The ones who just believe, the ones who see that the damage to the faith is going to be greater than the individual should be allowed to, and it shouldn't be allowed that as one individual makes something which is so good for everybody seems so bad, so we'll cover it up for the sake of the organization, for the sake of the investment that faith has gotten that organization. So this unfortunately is going to burn the both sides of the political Christmas tree that is the United States. Not only the Democrat side, but also the Republican side. Or should I say it right now? Not only the Republican side, but also the Democrat side, and particularly the ones who were involved with the failed campaign last year. Oh, wow, look at that. As soon as I say anything remotely political, primary stream, all I'm doing is sitting here talking to my computer, and for some reason it can't be happy with me saying the things that I'm going to say. Hey, well, I guess the censors are busy tonight. Hope you guys are enjoying laughing your asses off at someone saying the truth. They knows exactly who must be doing it. Who else is concerned with babies? You know, that's the way I look at it. Who else is concerned with babies? You know, if they love the thing that much that they can't get through the day without talking about it all day long, maybe they got a problem. Oh boy, the here and the now is what pedos are afraid of. If you do not believe me, if you do not understand what I'm telling you, you do not understand why it is important that they exist in positions of power so that they can survive at all. Not only in positions of power, but in positions where they're caught consistently in a get me out of here attitude. Billy Bush, the clip that we looked at earlier in the first part of the Banjocast this evening, Pitchforks and Flaming Torches Part 1. Billy Bush was totally caught in a situation he couldn't get out of, and yet he knew he had to go through it in order to. It was the worst crucifixion he would ever get. And yet, he had Colbert to get him through it. And then when he ran out of things to say, he started signaling in vacuous language that he did not have a cue card to refer to. Therefore, he couldn't say anything else. Whatever, Billy. Well, it was an interesting day. Totally interesting day in the media. And they're all like that, I guess. But this last year, especially, sick and tired of listening to the crap coming out of the States. Honest to goodness. Not only that, but the crap coming out of Canada on behalf of the parties that got their asses fucking kicked. The ones who are literally sore that they didn't get their way, got to have their way in Canada just to prove a point or something. No, sorry boys, not going to work either. I don't think Canada's going to put up with your crap till 2019, to be honest with you. Trudeau might be forced to call an election before 2019. Any of y'all thought about that? Trudeau might not make it in 2019. That would be a real nice outcome. Trudeau gets caught halfway through 2018 unprepared and short. Bye-bye Trudeau. Vote of no confidence for his corrupt ass. That would be nice, you know. Saw some news on YouTube today about what was published on the 29th or later of November. It was Andrew Scheer, I believe, conservative, giving Trudeau a crucifixion in House of Commons. Thing was, the Scheer didn't announce who some of those ISIS terrorists were. Some of those ISIS fighters were probably Canadian citizens and not Muslim. I shouldn't say all of them, but some of them probably not even Muslim. And that's what makes it embarrassing. You don't even want to admit what they really are. But yeah, why would it be that I'm finally tired or willing to discuss what I know about societal control and pedophiles? Well, funny I should bring this up. I felt the urge to make a comment on Lionel Nation not too long ago about this very thing. I think it was in the fall of 2007 or 2008. I saw a poster in the local area for a series of lectures being held at MUN. It was sponsored by a local Seventh-day Adventist group. And for a 5-day period during the evening, in a university room in the engineering building, where there was a big multimedia setup and a theater set, like a theater seating, enough to seat a couple hundred people. There was a Seventh-day Adventist group proselytizing to MUN, to the local university, Memorial University of Newfoundland. The guy that they brought in was from, I think, from New York or New Jersey. At least that was what the website suggested. And he was making an argument from a Seventh-day Adventist point of view that it was involving how there were messages in the media and the Illuminati were this and that and the other thing. And but he spent most of his time focusing on the book of Daniel, the Old Testament book of Daniel, and in particular a short phrase which involved the description of an idol. And the idol was made out of, something, and its head was made of one thing, and its shoulders and arms were made of something else, and its legs of something else, and its feet were made of clay. And this was what he was harping on, was the feet being made of clay. And he proceeded to explain to everyone in the audience, this was in the local university, as I say, this is in Newfoundland, and Newfoundland has, for good or ill, what I would have to call a Christian population, split between Protestants and Catholics. Fairly, I would have to say fairly evenly, but probably with a Catholic predominance in areas to the south of the province. And in the north, prominently, it really has to even say prominently Protestant, because there is large Catholic representation even in the Protestant portions. The Catholics are quite common here. and they make up an important part of cultural awareness in their Catholicism. They've no desire to hide it, nor feel an urge to. Some of them may have, back in the day, may have left England and the United Kingdom for precisely the reason that it wasn't good to be a Catholic at the time there. But anyway, I digress. Excuse me. Anyway, during the course of these lectures, a lot of time was spent discussing the book of Daniel, in particular this statue and the feet of clay, which indicated that the statue, the nature of the statue was somehow fallen or bad or worthless. It was likened to an Achilles heel in some sources that I've looked up, but anyhow. The speaker for this event, the person that was invited in, the talent, he decided to associate the statue, in particular because of the feet of clay, to the Catholic Church, who he described as fallen, worthless, evil, any number of pejorative terms. He used them all. And there were Catholics, I watched them during the course of the first couple evenings, there were Catholics standing up and leaving when he did this. After hearing it once or twice, they had enough to get up and leave. After hearing it 5 times or 10 times, though, they definitely got up and left. But he harped on it time and time and time again. He didn't really increase his numbers if he was there to evangelize. He didn't work too well. Anyway, I got curious, though, and it occurred to me as I was listening to him, for all of this talk about fallen, evil, worthless, blah, 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 whatever he wants to associate with the feet of clay, for all that talk, he never once talked about what reasons people might have for legitimately not liking the Catholic Church in the real world. It was as if he'd never heard of a sexual abuse scandal. And I couldn't understand, and I still don't, why he would avoid discussion upon that particular point, unless it's to avoid letting on about it. Okay, let me put this another way. And this is something I didn't think about at the time, but I thought about it since, because you can't avoid it anymore. Psychological projection is part of the reason why you got to be careful with, or part of the reason why it's almost is discouraged discussion of certain topics in polite society. Because to be too concerned with such and such a thing is to show that you've got a problem with such and such a thing. Homosexuality is almost always an argument which involves a certain number of people who are vocally and vehemently opposed to it, and it turns out one or more of their number are in fact, so that the very thing that closeted them is the thing which forces them to yell, not so much to let themselves out of the closet, but to make it appear that there is no, that they're not a part of the problem, so to speak. They're doing what's normal in order to appear less threatening than the real threatening thing that they are. I mean, I'm not saying that homosexuals are threatening. I'm merely saying that they overreact against it until outed, and then once outed, they embrace. And so the act of being outed is identified as a liberating act not that long ago. Anyway, projection makes the topic of child abuse difficult for religious organizations, because they can't throw too many stones when they know their own. They really can't throw too many stones without taking a chance that their own organization is going to fall to the same set of allegations, and rightfully so. Because some tricks don't change, you know. Anyway, I got him back. I got him back for his work and for his insensitivity. He was from America. I couldn't avoid it. I got him back by writing a question to him during question period, because he allowed us a certain time for questions at the end of every lecture. He would lecture for several hours during the evening, 5 nights in a row, and after several hours of listening to him babble on about babble on about. You get that, huh? Babble on about messages in the media and end times coming. Babylon the Great and yada yada yada. He would allow us to have a question time at the end of the lecture, and the first question time was the only one where I was allowed to actually ask a question. Every other time they shut down the process itself to avoid people asking impertinent questions that they didn't want to answer. The question I asked him was simple: where in the Bible is there a prescription against pedophilia? I asked him directly, and his answer was evasive as fuck. I'll give you what his answer was. It wasn't suffer the little children to come unto me, but it was similar to that. As you've done unto the least of my brethren, closer to that one. Anyway, he used the Gospels to try to say, basically you had to love everybody. I said, that's an evasion. I said, that's not a direct answer. I said, there's all kinds of rules in that Bible, in that Old Testament that you've been banging on about for, how many hours or how many nights. You've been banging on and on and on about specific, and yet you cannot give a specific prescription against something which every human being apparently knows is wrong, except the ones who insist on doing it anyway. And he goes, "Oh, we can't talk about this. There's children present." I said, "Oh, ha." And there you go. So not only is he a bastard, he's also an enabling bastard, is how I read it. The more I think about it, the more I have to read it. Thanks a lot, guy. So he'll happily engage in a cover-up if it's to his religious organization's benefit. Okay. And that's why, friends, I have no desire to be part of any religious organization. Don't need one. Wouldn't want their protection. The protection that they give is for what? What do I need their protection for? Would be the best question, right? But what can they protect? And who can they protect? And what can they gain by offering that protection? Some people would literally be able to live in a world they otherwise wouldn't be able to live in, simply by getting that protection and surrendering everything of property value they ever had to the organization. This gets into, there's a lot of gates going around at the moment. There is a hell of a lot of gates going around at the moment. But yeah, it gets into what sometimes we called Pizzagate, and what's it's been called things that were a lot less flattering. But it seems to me like the critical mass of awareness in the United States at this moment in time is reaching a point where the particular powers that be, who have been standing up and virtue signaling the most with specific types of imagery, particularly things involving children, they're the ones who are going to get burned because of what projection insists on being true. If it turns out that some or all of them have been projecting like bastards that they are, because they're abusers, and that's what the evidence does seem to suggest, then they can say all they want about specific people that have no evidence for. They can say whatever they want about words like believe. They can say that whatever they want about that. The rule of law is going to say something different, and that exists outside of the court too. They can't control everything anymore. They know that. I thought about this. I saw it, and I should probably give a link to this. Bullshit Man just put up a video. And if you've never heard of Bullshit Man before, he's a superhero who existed in the crazy mind of some British producer until finally he became real on YouTube. The superhero became real on YouTube first, ladies and gentlemen. His name is Bullshit Man. He just released a thing on Jimmy Dore. Just released a video. He's called Jimmy Dore, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's fucking awesome work. The funny thing about watching the Jimmy Dore video is Jimmy Dore totally gave the game away about the moment, like about a specific moment where Clinton got outed as bad goods. And that's the moment where she's like standing on the sidewalk and surrounded by people and starts to faint and practically falls into the vehicle. Ends up having to go to Chelsea's and then does a photo op right afterward, and then it's nothing but lying about types of pneumonia afterward. Crazy stuff, right? The funny thing is I still don't trust Jimmy's storytelling. Not Jimmy Dore's. No, I don't. I don't trust his motives for trying to... I'm not defending Clinton at all. But give me a second and beg your indulgence. Suppose you're Clinton. Or suppose you're a person, and just any person, maybe not as evil as Clinton. Perhaps you're a person who, when you look at one of your personal devices, realizes, oh my God, I've been hacked. And the enormity of the hacking on the device that you're looking at, it could be your phone, could be your computer, the absolute enormity of the realization, all of my whatever was important that I didn't want anyone else to see has been hacked. That all dawned on you. It might be so great, depending on the enormity of the importance of what's on your device. You might faint simply from that, right? That's the impression I got from Jimmy harping on that moment with Hillary. It was like the moment where she got caught with a poker tell and literally fainted. He was berating her almost for it. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm merely saying he's funny. He's got such good instincts for that type of thing, and yet when he's in person, in public, he's a fucking lizard. What the hell? What the hell is that? The lizard-like... I tell you what it does mean. It means David Icke was right. To some degree. Funny to say that, but Jimmy Dore is like outstanding proof of lizard. You can't get any better. The good, the bad, and the ugly of Jimmy Dore is an incredible video. Simply because of the preponderance of good required for you to even swallow the pill, which has him as all, which clearly says he's a lizard. The pill has it right on the fucking box. He's a lizard. Oh, the Crowder heads, man, they're even worse. The Crowder heads pissed me off even worse. I'm not even looking at the chat tonight. Everybody listening. King B listening in the background. Crowder heads are worse in some ways, but in funny ways. That some people don't understand Crowder is Canadian and therefore can't be trusted. I understand it implicitly. Simply because he's Canadian, he can't be trusted. Oh, he's playing as an American now. I got to tell you, I had noticed that there's different classes of society in Canada. One of those upper classes has joint citizenship. That's one of those upper classes. You want to really prove how North American and forward-thinking and progressive you are, you have to have joint citizenship, dual. Otherwise, they just don't look at you. How else can you say you really matter? I got the right idea, though. I live in Newfoundland. When did King B even say hi? It was several minutes ago. So yeah, I'm having fun in a lot of the different chats I go to because I see that the hot button topics have all been pressed. They've all been pressed really hard, and there still isn't any proof. Of course there isn't. The more true it tends to be up the line. The more like, I tell you, I tell you and anyone else who's listening, here's something else I've thought about and good and hard. This is a consequence of Operation Mockingbird. If you haven't heard of Mockingbird, or if you're not into that end of the conspiracy pool, where the pool is extremely well marked and it's all government certified, Operation Mockingbird, I think, if you ask me, probably has a few little details that are still not entirely revealed. I mean, they're out there, but nobody's talking about them in their commentary. Here's one of them. The truth still has to be told, but it gets told in fictionalized accounts and never in the right place at the right time. So anybody who figures out the truth from the truth having been told in a fictionalized account gets called a crank. Or, in other words, they have to admit to their own wrongdoings. They have to admit to their own wrongdoings in order to sleep at night. This is a psychological requirement of the bullshit game they play. They must know what their own malfeasance is, and we must, as part of a media diet. Or else the invisible hand of the market won't work, and they fucking know it. That's the problem. That is almost entirely the problem with the fake news, as it were. And why the stuff which is manufactured for mainstream shock effect can't be trusted any more than you can call Survivor reality TV. It isn't. There's no reality to it other than, well, they might actually be that isolated. Well, whatever. Isolated or not, what fucking difference does it make if it's all scripted? Or if there's a certain amount of finagling happening behind the scenes to make certain results which polled best of all happen. An interesting thought about Mockingbird, that the truth must be told, but in a manner which makes any person who figures out the truth a crank. They got to be. That's why the conspiracy theorists gets called a specific kind of crank. You can even put the truth farther down. Put the truth where anyone who gleans the truth is going to be discredited simply because of where the truth is. Oh, the truth is not anywhere, but it's in the National fucking Enquirer. President Trump is Bat Boy. Oh no, Bat Boy is Trump, right? That would be the kind of thing I'm referring to, but it's a ridiculous example. I don't mean that literally. I'm trying to think of some examples of what I mean when I say that the truth still has to be told. Well, it was quite obvious to people in the Democratic Party that Hillary Clinton's sale of uranium through Uranium One, like of a certain fraction of uranium capacity of the United States through Uranium One to Russia was a bad idea. So they had gotten that idea probably through official channels, not just from talking to one another at the water cooler. You know what I mean? There was no attempt to hide certain stories, only attempts to spin them as in certain directions, which was a misuse even of what Mockingbird would have had them do, which would have been to hide the truth in some other form. Allow me to demonstrate. I did actually come up with a Mockingbird example. The television series MacGyver, the first time, featured had all the same features of the one that's been rebooted in the last 2 years. For example, they work for the Phoenix Foundation, Phoenix program in Vietnam. Thank you very much. That's not the only thing, of course, and they're consistently trying to make the stories as if they're good things in the MacGyver Phoenix Foundation, and not necessarily a terrible one. I also find the new MacGyver to be more than a little creepy compared to the old one. More than a little. I mean, the old one had CIA connections clearly, but the new one, creepy as fuck. I think there's a new word on the code word awareness list, and it's skee ball, unless I'm sadly mistaken. I think I know what you mean about upper class joint citizenship. Oh man, I guarantee it. I guarantee you it's true. You want to find the upper class members in a socialist country, they're the ones who have dual citizenship with the nearest capitalistic haven. And in our case in Canada, it's got to be south. They're upper crust and they're separated. They're sometimes Vermonters, but not always. New Hampshire, Vermont is one of them. I wouldn't say so much, it can't be so much in Maine, although there would be places where in Maine it's true. It's funny how true it is, though. I think I gotta start looking up some kind of a talkback system here. Like looking up Mumble or whatever and let people talk. I also could put the text into this window somehow, I think. It's still here. But yeah, the Seventh-day Adventists came to town, and this was back in the year of Hurricane Igor, I think. It was the same year as Hurricane Igor. And at the time I was... if I wasn't already flabbergasted at how crazy the Seventh-day Adventist way of thought was, to see it in full practice and to hear a person hatefully, the thing was the guy would have got away with saying things that was hateful simply because he looked different than most people around here. Therefore, he was an attraction. And because of that, he got to say things which people got very angry at and got up and stood up and walked away, rather than listen to his hateful tripe. And I'm not trying to say that Catholics, the sun shines out of the Catholic ass and blah blah blah. No. I've got plenty of problems with organized religion. But it's funny to think that you'd use the Bible to prove that Catholics are evil, instead of, perhaps a little more direct route. And that kind of ignorance is dangerous as fuck. That's my contention. It is why I refuse to be identified as a Christian any longer. It's why I'm vocally an atheist. And let them say what they will about me and my morality. I've got a clear conscience. It's not hell I fear, and I don't feel retribution in the here and now either. So, who's got that fear, right? Yeah, I've had enough chatting. Thanks for listening, YouTube. I do certainly intend to stream again in the next 24 or 48, whenever I'm feeling a little bit better in the throat.